Welcome to this evening's session of Bhagavad Gita. I'm Laksmi. An honor and a pleasure to be here with you this evening as we continue our journey through the great sacred text, Bhagavad Gita. We are on chapter 6, which is entitled Dhyana Yoga, or the Yoga of Meditation. I had the great honor and privilege this past weekend to give a yoga teacher training seminar on what is the Gita. And I introduced to them that the concept of every chapter of Bhagavad Gita is a yoga. So this is chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. It's the yoga of meditation. In the first chapter, Arjuna Vishada Yoga means Arjuna's dejection or depression becomes a yoga or a system of connecting to the Supreme. By taking his situation, his dejection, his confusion about what his duty is, and instead of becoming paralyzed by that, use it as a catalyst to free himself from that confusion and to make advancement in his life, in this journey, in this spiritual journey. So this sixth chapter is the chapter entitled Dhyana Yoga, the Yoga of Meditation. We are continuing through this wonderful chapter. We're on text 32. So as I normally do, I'll read the Sanskrit of the first verse to put us in the mood of the Bhagavad Gita, the dialogue that took place between Arjuna and Krishna over 5,000 years ago. So thank you all for being here with me. Text 32 reads as follows. Atmao pamyena sarvatra samang pashyati yorjuna shukam va yadiva dukam sayogi paramo mataha. And the translation to that reads as follows. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. So this is a description of how one involved in yoga, a true yogi, is empathetic. They can see, they can feel the suffering of others. They have empathy. And Krishna is saying there, he's a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, what is comparison to your own self? It's your experiences, what you've experienced and what you continue to experience in life. That gives you this vision, this understanding of the position of others. It's very difficult without being spiritually advanced and without seeing the connection between all living beings. How can there be unity? I'm kind of on a kick right now where I'm trying to piece together how religions can serve as a unifying force rather than as a divisive force, as you're not following my way, therefore you're going to hell. With that kind of attitude, then religion does not serve humanity in the highest way that it can. Certainly a path, a yoga path, religious path, is meant to serve humanity by helping us to understand ourselves, understand others, our relationship between ourselves and others, our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this way, we can also understand our relationship with the world around us. So it gives us a understanding, by understanding the nature of the self, experiencing the nature of the self. When I say that, the spiritual nature of the self, it will help us to understand everyone's position. So this verse is a great verse which is defining spiritual empathy. True equality is not sameness of bodies or sameness of ethnicity or sameness of culture or sameness of religion. That is not what helps us to understand the equal nature. And in fact, what happens is a particular religious philosophy or yoga philosophy, if it gets distorted, then rather than seeing the equality of all beings, it does damage. It separates us. Yoga is not meant to have us separated, but it is meant to have ourselves unified with our true nature, and thus understanding our true nature and linking it up to the true nature of the Supreme, help us to understand our relationship and the equality of our relationship with all beings. And when Krishna talks about all beings, the equality of all beings, he's talking about everything that has life, because life is a symptom of the presence of a living entity, a being, a soul. That's a symptom. And in past ages, we had experience where when religious philosophy, yogic philosophy is corrupted, then because you're of a different color body, you don't have a soul, and therefore I can treat you like an animal. And justification of all kinds of mindsets because of misidentity and misuse. You misidentify the nature of the soul, and then you misuse your energy, your human energy. When we're blessed with the human form of life, that blessing is that we have the intelligence to begin to ask very significant questions which help us to understand the equality of all beings. And when we are situated on that platform, that equality, that equal vision, then we can see that there is scope for peace in the world. There is scope for peace no matter the skin color, no matter the ethnicity, no matter the religion. As long when we see a religion in particular emphasize the differences, then we can understand the red flag should go up. They're different because they're not reading the Bible, they're not reading the Quran, they're not reading the Torah. They're different because of cultural distinctions. They're different because of their perspective of God and how to serve God, how to worship God. That divisiveness, that separatism is real red flag in terms of whether this particular path, this particular journey is leading us in the right direction. You can be walking a path, but if you're walking that path and you're going in the wrong direction, then, what is the value of that? You'll never get to the ultimate destination, your ultimate goal, because you're walking in the wrong direction. Lord Buddha said, if you're facing in the right direction, keep walking. So the right direction, what's the indicator of the right direction? That we can see, as Krishna is indicating here in terms of the highest yogi. He has empathy. He or she can feel empathy for the suffering of all living entities. It's not just the suffering of a baby, uh, the baby experiencing disease or homelessness. It's also suffering of animals in a slaughterhouse. It's this suffering that we see another living entity going through that makes our heart cry. So this Krishna is saying in this particular verse, true equality is not sameness of bodies, but recognition of a shared spiritual identity. We are truly a family when we recognize our shared spiritual identity. Compassion arises from perceiving all as family, all as related. We're all brothers and sisters in the family of God. God is the Father. We're all brothers and sisters in that way. And we see each other with compassion. Just like if you grew up in a family and you had siblings, if your sibling who you're very close to is suffering in some way or another, because of that tie, because of that connection, you feel that suffering and you want to help that person to be free from that suffering. So what Krishna is saying here in this particular verse, the system of yoga. No, where am I? Oh, here. He is a perfect yogi. He's describing someone who's following yoga, practicing yoga perfectly. By comparison to his own self, is able to see his own true nature. That's what Patanjali says. Yogas chitta vritti narodaha. What is yoga? Yoga is the calming of the mind so that one can actually see the true nature of the self. In bhakti yoga, one is practicing bhakti with the principle of watering the root. That principle, which is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam of watering the root, what does it mean? It means when in bhakti, the perspective is if we serve the Supreme, we serve God through love and devotion. That is like watering the root of a tree. And what benefits as a result of watering the root of a tree? The whole tree, the entirety of the tree, the branches, the bark, the twigs, the flowers, the fruits, and from the deepest part of the root all the way up to the topmost feature of that tree, all benefits by watering the root. The bhakti system is exactly that we are, by performing yoga, a connective process, bhakti with love and devotion to the Supreme, then when the root source, the root, is being nourished by our love and our devotion, every single aspect of the tree, every single living entity will be benefited. Fortunately, I feel very fortunate in that I had the association of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, because in that association of a great sage, a great saintly person, I can see people from all walks of life, people from all different socioeconomic statuses. When they came in contact with him, they felt a certain peace, a certain feeling of connectiveness. It was amazing to see when Prabhupada had dialogue with academicians or politicians or parents of people who were becoming devotees, who were giving up their way of life, the traditional way of life, and taking on the life of a bhakti yogi. Prabhupada had an ability to be supremely kind, understanding, and he had the ability to connect with them in a true heartfelt way. So when you're with a personality of that stature that has this compassion, this empathy, this kindness, this quality of mercy, then it's felt profoundly in a life-changing, transformative way. So Krishna is saying here, compassion arises from seeing the totality as represented by the spirit soul's relationship with each other, the spirit soul's relationship with the material world, the material energy, the spirit soul's relationship with the Supreme. We see that, and we are understanding the true equality of all living beings. He feels others suffering because he sees them as all parts and parcels of the Supreme. The Sanskrit for that is paradukkha dukkhi. Paradukkha dukkhi means that my suffering is I experience suffering by seeing the suffering of others. Because a truly advanced soul doesn't really suffer. They may experience pain, disease, whatever, but not suffering. Suffering goes to the mind. It's a mindset. It's when we see with the wrong perspective, when we are thoroughly attached to and invested in the bodily concept of life. So this paradukkha dukkha cannot be understood, cannot be experienced unless you break free of the misidentification, the relationship that you forge with the body. You are the body. The body is the all in all of your existence. There's nothing beyond the body. No. Misidentification and then misuse. When you misidentify, you think you're the body, you think you're the mind, and then you misuse the human form of life to try to satisfy the senses and try to satisfy the mind by having an outreach. There's objects of the senses, just designing your life, structuring life in such a way as you try to experience enjoyment by your senses reaching out to the objects of the senses and trying to enjoy the results of that reach out. That's misidentification. But when we see things in proper perspective, when we see things in relationship to the Supreme, all beings, all matter, everything in its really, and that's what Bhagavad Gita is doing. It's helping, it's giving us, Krishna through Bhagavad Gita wants to give us divyam chakshush. Divyam chakshush means spiritual vision. In the second chapter, he talks about the distinction between matter and spirit. Why? You develop that vision, you can understand that you are the motivating force behind that body, that machine made of material energy. You can see that, you can experience that. So you don't misidentify with matter. You don't invest all your time in matter. Because, I joke around, I say, pretend I'm your investor, and you're giving me money, and I'm telling you to invest in a company that's going to go bankrupt. That's exactly in relationship to investing in the body and the mind, which is going to eventually grow old, get diseased, and die. So it's not an intelligent investment. Krishna is trying to point that out in the Bhagavad Gita by giving us an understanding of the distinction between matter and spirit, giving us an understanding of how to utilize the human form of life through the process of yoga, how to be active, but always in meditation, always in connection and linked, yoked to the Supreme. By not seeing action and the results of that action as yours to enjoy, but first it is an offering to the Supreme. That is what Krishna, one of the many things that he is trying to instruct us in the Bhagavad Gita. So what is going on? Where Krishna is encouraging us, discipline the mind, experience joy, but spiritual joy, cultivate a vision of unity by understanding the true nature of the soul and the nature of all living beings, all souls, and have a personal reciprocity with the Supreme through relationship. Bhakti which we'll get into in the next chapter. 7 through 12 are the Bhakti chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Well, we'll get into that. That there is Bhakti is a relational yoga system. Means it's based on the cultivation of a relationship with the Supreme. Being able to direct and structure one's life within the process of cultivating that relationship. And then what happens? Compassion. Exactly what's being said here. And Krishna now is beginning to indicate that dhyana, yoga, the yoga of meditation, is when it matures into bhakti yoga. What are you meditating on that gives you the greatest depth of realization and inspiration? This is the transitional part of the 6th chapter, which talks about meditation, importance of meditation, the mechanics of meditation. But now we're getting into how this is transitioning into the fact that if you meditate on the highest alambana means, according to Patanjali, the object of meditation, that the quality of compassion, all these various qualities are developed. In Christianity, they say, one thing that is said in Christianity is that if you're touched by the Spirit of God, then all these qualities manifest. So also in Bhakti, if we are linking up to the Supreme, it's like fire. Fire can transfer its energy, heat, light. It can transfer it. And if you have a cold iron rod and you place it into the fire, now the energy of the iron rod is hardness. It's hard, right? The energy of the fire is its heat and its light. So we take the cold rod, we put it into the fire, and the fire, being a very powerful energetic force, transfers its energy into the hot iron rod, and the hot iron rod becomes like fire. If you touch a very, very hot iron rod to your skin, it will burn you like fire. It will also become, the hotter it gets, it'll be change colors, and eventually it'll glow due to the presence of all that heat energy. So when we structure our life in sangha with advanced devotees, advanced practitioners, we make it a part of our lifestyle. In Ayurveda, they say the way that you can become healthy, two things in Ayurveda that is often spoken about as a matter in a way to become healthy. Diet, which is the energy, the quality of the energy that you put into your body, and lifestyle. How to organize your life in such a way that it helps it to become, it gives it the most beneficial environment internally and externally so that the body can become balanced. In that balanced state, it becomes healthy. Similarly, in the practice of yoga, if we put ourselves in the proper internal and external environment, which is everything that we do in terms of the yogic lifestyle, is to put us in the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness is clarity. The mode of goodness is knowledge. The mode of goodness is happiness. So it puts us into that state of mind internally. Externally, it reflects mode of goodness. What is a reflection of the mode of goodness externally? Is your house clean? Are your clothes clean? Do you bathe regularly? Are you organized or are you disorganized? All of these things are indicators of the particular guna or the particular mode of material nature that's affecting you. 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is a very good chapter because it helps us to understand the influence of the modes of material nature. So lifestyle is very important. So we're now going, as I said, going through this transition, dhyana yoga, and as it's maturing, as we're getting a greater and greater understanding of dhyana yoga, how it's going to, Krishna is going to demonstrate or show us by the end of the chapter that it is the maturation of dhyana yoga is bhakti yoga. Text 33 reads as follows. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga, which you have summarized, appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. Very interesting, right? Restless and unsteady. So, what does that mean? Arjuna has heard from Krishna, right? He's heard from Krishna. And then, and Krishna, this is Jnana Yoga. So Krishna is talking about the uh, process of Ashtanga Yoga, the eightfold yoga system ladder. And what is Arjuna's reaction to that? Krishna is saying that you must, retreat to the forest and sit on a kusha grass bed and place a deer skin and sit with neck, back, and head erect, and for literally long periods of time, just have the mind fixed on your object of meditation. In bhakti, the object of meditation will be the supreme. Krishna, Ram, and meditating on the pastimes, the qualities, the names. That's why you see in bhakti, the emphasis is so strong on two types of meditation. Japa, the chanting on the beads, the counting of beads, and the saying of the mantra that your teacher gives you. And then also kirtan, which is the use of rhythm and melody to absorb the mind in mantra. That's kirtan. Kirtan is not a musical genre, although some people see it as such. Kirtan is a music, rhythmic meditation on the holy names of the Supreme. It is meant to facilitate. That's why you have to be very careful when you're in kirtan. Careful meaning it's not just a musical performance. It's not how musically adept you are, because there have been experiences over the course of time where someone is not musical at all. They're not musical at all, but yet the heartfelt way that they are chanting or performing kirtan is so steeped in love and in devotion. It doesn't matter that musically it wasn't so great. Like sometimes people are afraid to lead kirtan because they're saying, oh, I don't really have a great voice. What is great about your voice is when you offer that voice, you are taking that voice and using it as an offering to please who you are chanting to. If you're chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, for instance, that's Radha and Krishna. So you are making an offering. And if the offering is steeped in love and devotion, you may not be the best singer. You may not be the best musician in the world, but it will be embraced by Radha and Krishna. So it's very important. So here, this text 33, Arjuna is bringing up a real life issue for a meditator. He's saying, Krishna, you just described Ashtanga yoga, and it seems to be very, very difficult. So difficult that it's going to create a disturbance in my mind rather than to make my mind peaceful. Why is it a disturbance? Because the mind, Krishna says, he describes the mind as chanchala. Chanchala means flickering. It's here, it's there. It's like you have a radio, whatever that is nowadays, right? How many people listen to radio? But you have the radio station, let's say you're in your car and you're looking for the news, or you're looking for soul music or whatever, and you're changing the stations. You go from one station to another station to another station to another station. The mind can be compared to that. It's being changed. Flickering means it's going from one thing to the other, then coming back to the original thing, and it keeps moving, flickering. Just like when you see the candle that's lit, and if there is no wind, there's nothing there, but just stillness, then the light on the candle, the flame on the candle remains still. But as soon as you introduce wind, then you get the flame moves, the flame flickers. The mind is very much like that. It has to become a lamp in a windless place, not that we are constantly thinking of this and that, so many different things we're introducing, so many radio stations we're turning to. So Arjuna is making that point, sitting, keeping the neck, the back, the back, the spine, the neck, the head erect, sitting legs crossed, and trying to control the mind, having the mind peaceful. Very difficult. It's flickering. It's moving from one thing to the other. Another word he uses to describe the mind is pramati. Pramati means turbulent. Turbulence. That means lots of churning and lots of movement, powerful movement. That's the word that's Patanjali uses is vritti. And vritti means the turning and churning of the mind. And Arjuna is saying the mind's chanchala, flickering. The mind is pramati, it's turbulent. The mind is balavat, which means strong. And the mind is dridham. Dridham means stubborn. So this is the way Arjuna is describing the mind, and this is the question that he is posing to, and doubt that he's presenting to Krishna. Chanchala, flickering, turbulent, strong, obstinate. The mind is like that. And what is very famous in this verse, he says, it is more difficult to control than the wind. It's been windy here in southern Florida the last couple of days. And in that wind, everything is blowing and moving and falling. The leaves are falling, the branches are falling. So the noise is being made by the pushing of the branches against each other. The turbulence, movement, these are not conducive to a peaceful state of mind. So why does this matter? It's not a minor concern. This is a crisis for a meditator. If there are a meditator is always having to deal with the turbulence, the flickering, the obstinate, the strength of the movements of the mind, Arjuna is saying it's impossible because remember, Arjuna is a Kshatriya, and a Kshatriya means a warrior. And when we talk about these different stages, personality types, etc., it's also an indicator of the predominant mode of nature, the predominant mode of passion or goodness, or passion and goodness together, or ignorance, passion and ignorance together. All the different combinations indicate what type of person, your personality index. So Arjuna is a Kshatriya. So he's influenced very strongly by passion. What does passion mean? Activity, active. So he's saying, my mind is active, my body is active, my senses are powerful. All of these things are there. So how am I going to meditate? So he's saying, this is a psychological reality for me. It's not artificial. It's not weakness you're giving up. It's a reality that you have to deal with. And what happens sometimes when people don't deal with the reality, they try, they get frustrated, and eventually they give it up. They give up meditation. I don't know how many people I've spoken to over the course of time, the course, that I've been involved in practicing bhakti yoga and teaching bhakti yoga. People say, yeah, I used to meditate, but boy, it's really hard to keep my mind still. It's really hard to make my mind peaceful. It's really hard to turn off my mind. Yeah, it's almost impossible to turn off your mind. That's why in bhakti, it's not a matter of negation to turn off the mind. In bhakti, it's the opposite. It's a recognizing the psychological reaction that the mind is active, the mind is turbulent, the mind is strong, the mind is obstinate, and to try to turn that or tone that all down is virtually impossible. So therefore, use another tact. What's the other tact? You attract the mind. You attract the mind by meditation on the beauty of the Supreme, on the sound, the spiritual sound vibration of the names of the Supreme. The everything that you do is in relationship to your service and the more you do things in a service attitude to the Supreme with a heart full of devotion, the more you can fill your mind. And filling your mind with that kind of meditation. Like, for instance, in bhakti, there's japa. And japa means the recitation of the holy names of the Supreme. In our particular bhakti yoga lineage, we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So what does that mean? It means our effort is we say the mantra and we try to hear the mantra. And when we do that, at least for a period of time, the mind can become absorbed. It can become full with that sound vibration. And that sound vibration is not an ordinary sound vibration. An ordinary sound vibration, a material sound, the object and the name of that object are different. The object and the name of that object are different. Water, for instance. Water is an element, right? It's an object. But if I'm experiencing thirst, do I vibrate the name of that object to get satisfied? In other words, if I'm thirsty and I sit and I say water, 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 is that going to satisfy me? It may fill your mouth up with saliva, but will it satisfy your thirst? No, because the object and the sound vibration which identifies that object are different. And there's a very profound verse which states that there is no difference on a spiritual level between the name and the named. So when you are vibrating a spiritual sound vibration, such as the sacred names of divinity like Krishna, like Ram, when you are vibrating those sacred names of divinity, there's no difference between that sound vibration and the object that sound vibration is naming. Krishna, Ram, Hare. It is that object in sound form. It is identical. It has all of the potency of that object in sound form. So it's a different type of meditation. It's a meditation of absorption with a very, excuse me, very powerful sound vibration that is able to, it's so powerful, it's so laden with beauty and love that it's attractive. The very meaning of the name of Krishna, for instance, is the all attractive. So you see meditation when we're absorbing the mind in the object of our meditation. It brings you to that state of discipline automatically, that state of control, that state of experience, the experience of something beyond the normal mindset that we experience, a calm mindset, a peaceful mindset, a happy mindset, a loving mindset. The mind now begins, like the example of the iron rod and the fire, the mind begins to absorb that energy that is contained within that sound vibration. And it starts taking on those qualities. That's the potency. So when Krishna is, when Arjuna is saying here, I can't do this. My mind's too turbulent. My mind is too strong. My mind is too obstinate. My mind is just all over the place. Yeah, Krishna agrees with that. He said, yeah. There's in the 14th chapter that I was describing to you before, talking about the gunas, Krishna says, O chief of the Bharatas, this is the 14th chapter of the Gita, 12th verse, O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering developed. So that's the result of absorbing oneself in the material nature, particularly the various aspects of the material nature that are represented by the gunas. The gunas means the influence that the material energy has on you, the soul. So Rajagun means passion or activity. So if you are involving yourselves in activity, then you are not going to make the mind peaceful, have the mind peaceful, unless the activity is linked to the Supreme. That's the switch that you have to flip. The flipping of the switch of connecting the mind to the Supreme in your action, in your meditation, in your eating habits, in who you associate with. It's a science. It's literally a science. And the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. Oftentimes people say to me, how do I start? Well, you begin at the beginning. You start with abhyas, some regulation, some practice, and vairag. Abhyas means your practice, your sadhanas. You begin, even for instance, when you advance to a certain point where you become very serious about your spiritual development and you seek out a teacher, and the teacher will give you instructions to how to design your life in a way that will be very conducive for advancement in bhakti yoga. Then, if you do that, if you follow those principles, and the mind now becomes a little bit disciplined. So begin at the beginning, whatever you can do to start. That will, the more you do it, the more you practice, just like anything. It's a constant debate I have with my son. My son is one of these kids that has natural abilities. He can, he can very quickly understand something and become almost immediately proficient in it. But the trouble with that is that you don't dive deep. You can pick up an instrument and play the instrument, but understanding the instrument, having the instrument be an effective means of expressing yourself, your emotions, etc. It doesn't happen because the necessary component is practice. So in our life, we may, very quickly be able to chant, for 15 minutes or a half hour or even an hour. Very quickly we'll be able to chant, meditate, etc. But it requires a practice mindset initially, where we're practicing, where we're paying attention to whether the mind is fixed or not. Hey, this is text 35 and 36. Oh, yeah, we did the mind is in 35 and 36. Lord Shri Krishna said, "Oh, mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment." So Krishna agrees. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, the mind is difficult to curb. It's difficult to curb the restless mind. But Krishna doesn't leave it at that. He said, but by abhyasena tu kuntiya vairagena chagriyate, it is controlled by practice and detachment. We see in practically every field of life, every aspect of life, the more we do something, seriously, the more adept we become. Whatever it is, art, music, your studies. People say, oh, students always say, why are you giving me homework? I'm giving you homework because it's abhyas. It's practice. We went over math in class. That's great. But then when you get out of class, your mind is everywhere and nowhere. So if you go home, right, and you practice again, you bring the mind back, it reinforces understanding. So Krishna is saying, you can do discipline in the mind, but you have to practice on a regular basis, and practice in an honest way. I will say to you that advancement in spiritual life, advancement in yoga requires honesty. That means you don't fall into traps of laziness and inattentiveness, and you absorb yourself. And even if there is your mind goes off, to be aware enough to bring it back, to draw it back in, rather than you're chanting, you're doing your practice, your meditation, and the mind is going and you're kind of going with it. No. And when the mind starts to go, you pull it back. And you continue to do that. It's like walking a dog, a restless dog, right? If your dog is all over the place and pulling you, and you got to pull it back into line, right? You have a little treat, you give the treat. My dog loves mozzarella cheese. So I have these little balls of mozzarella cheese. Look, look, okay, okay, come back. So the mind is going off there and going up there and smelling this and looking at that. And then you say, no, come back, come back. You bring the mind back. So continued practice at doing that. It is possible, Krishna says, by suitable practice, and vairagya means detachment. The more you get absorbed, the more detachment develops. It's returning the mind again and again. The spiritual muscle training. You see, almost every night I bring my son to jujitsu, and the jujitsu studio is located within a bigger place, which they work out. They have weights and all the machinery and all that. Everybody goes there. I see people there of all ages, and they go and they're working out. They're running and they're lifting weights. And what are they doing? They're trying to develop their muscles, right? So we have this spiritual muscle development that we are trying to do by going every day to the spiritual gym of abhyas, practice, sadhana. And to the degree that they are serious about doing their workout. In other words, my nephew is a personal trainer, and he says, I'd rather see my student do 10 curls, and properly than do 50 improperly, because the 10 that's done properly will have more effect on the development of the muscle tone, muscle strength. So same thing, we have to, when we're doing our spiritual practice and trying to develop our spiritual muscles, we have to try to do it properly. And that proof of proper implementation of sadhana, of the abhyas, the practice, will be detachment will naturally develop. Abhyas means complete absorption, complete remembrance. Oh, when you're doing your chanting, you're remembering, you're absorbed. So, in text 36, for one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. Text 37, Arjuna said, O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? And 38 reflects that mood. O mighty arm Krishna, this is 38, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? So this is Arjuna's spiritual anxiety. He's asking this question. What happens if I falter on my path? Does everything I do up to the faltering part, is it all, if I falter or even fall away, stop, does everything I've done, is it lost? That's Arjuna's. He's bewildered on his path of transcendence. Does he fall away from his practice and the benefits of that practice? So what happens if someone begins yoga with faith but fails due to an uncontrolled mind? Does he lose both material success and spiritual attainment? Does he become like a cloud that's torn apart by the wind? Cloud is a powerful metaphor. A cloud separated from the mass dissolves, belonging nowhere. Cloud is, you know, together, it looks beautiful, and then the wind can dissipate it. So, due to this weakness, um, there's everything that you've done or everything that you've accomplished up to that point just dissipate. So, text 39 reads, "This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt." And the last verse that we'll read for this evening, because we're nearing the end here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna says, "Son of Pritha Arjuna, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil." So Krishna, to a degree, he's allaying the anxiety that Arjuna has. One who does good never comes to ruin. This is a foundational statement that Krishna is saying. Just do it, and you get eternal credit into your bank account. It's something that's never lost or diminished. Never waste it. Anything that you do in your yoga, in your bhakti yoga, everything, every offering that you make, it's not lost, not diminished. It's not a waste of time because you fell away from the path. So karma may dissipate, material assets may vanish, but spiritual samskara, spiritual impressions persist across lifetimes. So I will end with text 40 there. And now I want to thank you, first of all, for your kindness and giving me your association and your attentiveness. Yeah, put on your camera so I can see your beautiful faces if you so desire. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Premarnava Hari Bo. Good to see you. So does anyone have any question that you would like to ask, any or observation, or would you like to share a takeaway from this evening's class? Anyone have anything? All questions, all observations, welcome. Because you may have a realization that will help. Yes.
I have an observation. And
okay, sure.
Someone else is going first?
You go, and then I think Trish, were you okay? So then Trish,
So it seems very straightforward. It's like this class tonight was like it's all logical.
Yeah.
And I think that the more you do spiritual exercises, the closer you become to spirit and further away from Maya, which is like the physical world. And I think that's a good thing. So
a good thing, and it's actually yoga, the process of yoga is experiential. It's not only meant to be, you know, psychological. It's meant to be experienced. And when you begin to experience the benefits of your yoga path, the benefits and I can only speak in terms of bhakti. When you begin to experience the benefits of bhakti, it's experiential and it's like, wow, aha! It's one of those aha moments. You know, you may go for a period of time, and you're thinking, oh boy, I got to get up, I got to chant, etc. But then you get into your meditation, and it's like, wow, I'm so happy I did this. Trish, you want to share something with us or ask a question?
Well, yes, thank you. Because sometimes in class you'll start talking about things and I'll have those aha moments because you give me words for those experiences I have chanting all these years, and now I have a much better understanding. When you talk about um, when we go through our experience and we often, I have those where you start processing the emotion and you're thinking about how it affects you, how all these situations, how affect you. And instead of the methods used to broaden the scope and think about how it's affecting the collective consciousness. Instead of just, it's all about me and my emotions and how it's affecting me, looking at it more as the observer and how it's affecting the collective unconsciousness.
That's a very good observation because that's the point. Particularly, my teacher used to make all the time. The effect of what you're doing is not singular. It's not in that, and in many ways, it differentiates when you're doing it from a bhakti perspective. It differentiates from different forms of meditation because it's all about you. It's all about you retreating into your meditation, going to the cave or going into seclusion, etc. And that's okay. It's good to have your well-being in mind and your peace of mind. That's good, but take it beyond that. Like you said, the effects on collective consciousness. One time in India, in Hyderabad, there was a drought. And so, Prabhupada, my teacher was doing a program, and they asked him, the politicians of Hyderabad said, Swamiji, could you chant? And we're experiencing so much drought. And and Prabhupada said, yes, yeah, chanting has so many effects, both seen and unseen. And he told his students to go out and chant, and they did. And it started raining. And then it was like next day, it was headlines, you chanting ends the drought. So it's a nice thing to see, but it has that effect, whether it's like that kind of effect, but the collective consciousness effect is amazing. It's something beyond yourself. And the practice of bhakti yoga is all about beyond yourself, not just your self-interest in mind. That when you're chanting, quite often I'll be sitting and I'll be chanting, and my dog will come up to me, because anytime that she sees me just like sitting there, and you know how it is with your pet. You have a connection, and she'll come up and she'll look at me, and then I'll look back at her right in the eyes, and I'll go, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, and she just sits there. And I think to myself, this is wonderful because this is a dog, and this dog, you know, is now getting the benefits of hearing the sacred names of Krishna. So you come out of yourself, even in that little exchange. But then you think on the greater, you're out and you're chanting. Sometimes when we go out on Harinam and we're doing kirtan, and there are people all around, and they may or may not be interested, but that doesn't matter because the sound vibration is filling the atmosphere. And when you think of the totality, the collectiveness of that moment, you see it, you're going beyond yourself. You're pouring water on the root. So the birds that are sitting in the tree, they're benefited. The insects that are flying or crawling or whatever, they're benefited. The people, they're benefited. I have a friend, his name is Ram Roy, he's an old friend of mine. And for the last 15 years, I think, he's been going out every day. He and his collective friends been going out every day in New York City, in Union Square Park for the most part, other parts, but mostly there. And every day they sit and they chant. And you know how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the last 15 years have have been caught up in that. And they don't know the benefit. And certainly we can't predict the benefit, but we can say, based on everything that's in the sacred text about the effect of spiritual sound vibration on the soul, we can say that they have benefited beyond their imagination. I remember I lived in an ashram in New Jersey, Tawaco, New Jersey. And every morning we would get up early and we would have what we call the morning program. We would rise early and we would chant in kirtan, and then we would chant in japa, and then we would have a class. And every morning we would do this day in and day out. And one day, I was in charge of the ashram, so I would meet the neighbors and be nice to the neighbors, sometimes send over baked goods to the neighbors. And anyway, this one couple, young couple, um, they were the immediate house behind the ashram. The ashram has 3.5 acres of land, but the immediate house is maybe 100 yards, 150 yards away. And I befriended the husband and the wife and the kids and all that. And one time the husband comes up to me and, they weren't practicing bhakti or showed very little interest. I mean, they were respectful and they were cooperative. But one time he comes up to me and he says, I had a dream last night. And I said, really? What would, he made an effort to come over and find me and tell me he had a dream. So I knew something was up. He said, I dreamt of Krishna. Krishna came to me and he was beautiful. He was blue and long, black hair, curly black hair. And he said, I was overwhelmed with this feeling. I didn't know what to do or what to think. And I said, that's what we're doing here every morning to have that kind of connection. He said, yeah. And so even a person who wasn't interested, wasn't averse to what we were doing, wasn't like, you guys, you're crazy. He had at least a receptivity to it. And then he had an experience. Now, whether he continued with that process to get that experience continually, and that's the separation between someone who's serious and someone who is distracted. I won't say not serious. I'll just say distracted by life, by family, by kids, by job, et cetera, et cetera. But just that, and I've heard it before from other people too, where they've just had this overwhelming dream connection, momentary as it might have been in relationship to the totality of their life. And that's, that's what you can experience. It's there in the sacred text, in the Bhagavatam, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and all the sacred texts of the Bhakti tradition are histories of different people who have been able to link up with that overwhelming joyful experience, where at first it might be momentary, but then it builds and becomes part of your very fiber, existent fiber. So, yeah. Yeah, Trish, that was a nice observation. Thank you for sharing with us on that.
Thank
The
you.
the collective consciousness. Anyone else have anything they would like to share with us?
Arriba, bro. Thank you
Hari
for the
Hari.
class. Yeah, it's very encouraging. The last part that you read, that in a spiritual life doesn't get lost. So whatever you do, it stays there. Sometimes, like like in spiritual life, you go up and down, but um, the the hope that we it's not lost, and we can also see that in like some devotees, right? When some devotees that they take to spiritual life very easily. They are steady throughout their lives, and that means it proves that they have done devotional service in previous lives. So um, that was one point. Another point was that when you say that the mind, in order to control it, you have to what's the word? To attract the mind. I thought that was very powerful because we always say no, don't do this, don't do that, don't do, but there's nothing to attract it. You know, uh,
Right.
we have the Harinam, Prasadam, festivals. Anyway, that's what.
Thank you. 2 points, the attraction of the mind, as you said, and yeah, the fact that whatever we do is not lost because there is the principle that's explained of samskara, and samskara means impression, impressions that go into your mind and they're never lost. So when we do our meditation, we do our acts of devotion, uh, that's never lost. Sometimes we may, become a little disheartened. Wow, I've been practicing bhakti yoga for 53 years now. How come I'm not rolling in ecstasy here? You think like that, but you begin to realize, you look at objectively your starting point 53 years ago, 54 years now, 54 years ago, and where you are right now. It's like when you're on a plane, right? And when the plane first takes off, right? So, suppose you're going on an international trip, you're going to India, like Srihari and I went to India in September. When that plane takes off, it's like, you know, there's this rush of force, you're pushed back in your seat and vibration and all that. You really feel it, and then it goes off the ground and you still feel the force of the speed, right? And then eventually it rises to the altitude it's going to maintain over the course of your trip, 35, 40,000 feet. And when you're first taking off, you really can see everything going by fast and you really feel like you're moving fast. But then when you're at the 35 or 40,000 foot altitude, you don't feel like you're moving very fast. And you look down and the land looks like it's going very slowly. So when we first start off in our serious endeavor in our practice, things come at you very fast paced. You really feel the joy of kirtan and the peace of meditating on japa, and the exhilaration from good association with people of like mind, and the kind of epiphany that you have when you're studying the sacred texts, and all like these realizations are coming at you. Lots of things are happening. You're moving fast. But then as time progresses, you're up at 35 or 40,000 feet, and now you're thinking, oh, I'm not moving so fast. And you're wondering, am I making advancement? And the answer is yes, you are. It's just that it's become so much part of your fiber that you're not getting the same kind of fast-paced sequence of experience. Now you're on a more nishta platform, a fixed platform of experience. Your mind is more regularly being controlled. So it's not like, oh, it's easing into the state of mind of a bhakti yoga practitioner. So thank you, Premarnava, for sharing that with us. We appreciate it greatly.
Yeah, thank
Anyone
you.
else?
Very nice answer, bro. Thank you so much. Analogies and thank you.
Anyone else have anything to say? Share with us?
What you were just talking about is like a spiritual plateau. It may seem like you've flattened out, but that's actually steady and
Right.
good for you.
Right. And not only is it's steady, but it is angled up too. It's
Mm.
not, if you're climbing like a rock wall, that's a vertical ascent, right? And you get to a plateau in the mountain, but the angle is still going up. So you've steadied out, but your angle of ascent is different, than climbing up the rock wall. So you're still making progress. You're still going forward and up, but it may not appear to be. But there are these moments in time during your practice where you experience the ecstasy. You come up to another wall and you're climbing up that wall, and so there's times, you're practicing, you're chanting, you feel happy with the chanting, and you feel happy in the execution of your service, and that's there. But it seems like more of a gradual ascent. But then there's some times when you're really blessed. You're really blessed with some mercy, and you feel more intensely what you're doing. The experience intensifies. And that is Krishna's grace to you to remind you what you have to look forward to on a more permanent, more fixed basis. It's given to us as an incentive, to just keep going. And that constant state of joy, that constant state of connectiveness, that love that you're experiencing, that overwhelming emotion that's encompassing the heart, you're reminded, and you just give gratitude. Thank you for that. All right. Wonderful, wonderful participation by you all. I thank you greatly for your observations, your questions. Um, until next week, you have a
Thank you very much,
happy,
bro.
Yeah.
healthy, and holy week. And if you're up north like Premarnava, stay warm.
Oh, yes.
How many inches of snow did you get?
We had like 17, 18 inches.
17?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
So, I mean,
yeah,
here,
my cousin lives near where I think he lives in Manalapan.
okay.
And I called him, because he's my mortgage broker also, and I had a question. And he said, I said, where are you at work? He said, I'm at home. He said, there's 18 inches of snow
Yeah.
outside. Don't you have a TV? And I said, no, I don't have a TV. I'm not. Why do I want to watch all you guys suffer? I'm here. It's nice here. The sun's out. I'm walking in my backyard, or my wife and I went for a stroll in a beautiful park. So why do I watch you guys suffer? All right. Have a
Okay.
happy, healthy, holy week. We'll see you next Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Hare Hare.
Just, Prabhuji, can we do more of it? Like twice a week?
You want to do more, Hita?
Yeah, twice a week or 3 times. I really like your explanations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we'll see. We'll see
Yeah.
what I've been thinking about different things. We have Trish and I go, and Angelica. We go to every Thursday night. We go to Kirtan, and we have a little discussion there sometimes, but mostly Kirtan, and that's a nice reward that we do.
Yes. Yes.
And you guys know it's at Core Strong, right? Trish and
Yes.
Angelica. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Thursday I have other appointments, so I can't come
You know,
Thursday. So Saturday, Sunday we'll see you. We have this week also.
yeah. Yeah, I have a program this Saturday, the 28th. So please, all of you that can make it, please come.
Sure. We'll come.
Thank
You
All
you.
right,
have-
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bo.
Hare
We'll see.
Krishna.
Hare
We'll
Bo.
see you guys soon.
Yes.
See you.